Good evening, biker friend. It's been a while. I got another story for you. You know all them tales about huge beasts made of flames that people reckon they saw during the massive bushfires years ago? Yeah, we all know someone who knows someone else who's heard of them. But I got info straight from the horse's mouth, mate. Yeah, straight from some chap who's seen it. Just like I am seeing you. That was one morning, right? I was just opening up. Some bikie arrived on a fucked up, half-burnt GSXR. Man, he stunk like ashes and burnt plastic. You should have seen his helmet. The visor half melted and his leather jacket kind of crusty, kind of. Shit, it was like he fell in a bloody bonfire. We all knew there was bushfires happening, but nothing too close to the town. Anyway, he pushed the door, went straight to the bar, asked for a drink. Didn't quite want to speak, but just felt like he had to tell his story, so I listened, you know. Hey, I'm a good listener. Alright, I know. And you'll tell me these stories, you don't believe them. It's all bullshit from bikies with brains cooked by alcohol or meth or whatever, I know. But this guy wasn't just some nobody. He was the boss, one of the founding members of Neo Melbourne's chapter of the Suicide Mob MC. #1 drug manufacturers in the capital city. They were involved in all the dodgiest and most self-destructive underground activities. Let's call him Bob. No, don't ask, mate. Look, I'm not going to tell you his real name, am I? Now, apart from the drugs, another thing they were famous for was doing security for rich bastards. You know, these eccentric, genetically modified motherfuckers I told you about. The ones living up in the towers, you know, the old towers of the city. Well, every year, these freaks were having some meetings or some kind of, I don't know, religious kind of thing in the countryside, far away from normal people's eyes, you know. And guess who they hired for their security? Yeah, that's right. The Suicide Mob Motorcycle Club. Now let me tell you about this gang. To get the membership, there's 3 things that are needed. 1, you gotta be a beast of a fighter. 2, you gotta pass the membership ritual. Now what was that? Well, you had to go provoke and fight dudes from other motorcycle gangs. At least 10 at once. And that's where the name comes from, Suicide Mob. And 3, well, I mean, you had to survive attacking 10 badass members of another gang all by yourself. There was a ranch past the Yarra Range National Park. I mean, that's a good, 3 hours drive from old dirty Neo Melbourne? Past the Yarra Range, no one can hear you scream, they used to say. Not too sure exactly what was going on there, but that certainly involved lots of lethal shit. I mean, the death of a lot of people who weren't asking for it. Young people, weak people, people no one would ask questions about, you know. These rich bastards had a whole network to provide them with fresh meat. I mean, as to what they did with that meat, I don't know. I've heard plenty of gross shit I'd rather keep to myself, but, well, I'm not too sure what's true and what's not, alright? What I do know is that even good old Bob had no idea what he and his boys were securing. All he knew was there'd be a lot of cash falling in his pocket by the end of the weekend. He couldn't care less. It wasn't an unfair rate, though, because quite a few times in the past, Had to fight other gangs and mercenaries, attacking the ranch. Who were they? Why were they attacking? As I said, he didn't give a fuck as long as he got paid. Maybe it was something to do with these containers full of kids and women that were being carried into the ranch. I mean, from where the bikers were during the job, all I could see was the inside core and the outside buildings. So there were checkpoints on each road entering the property. Bikers had to filter through the limos and other expensive cars from the guests. Every now and then they'd hear some screaming, or you'd see a bruised face of some young girl behind the dark tinted windows. But too young to be prostitutes. Well, at least by their standards. I mean, if you tried to make a kid do that, back in town, all the other gangs would get you and hang you in front of your bloody clubhouse. There's some things even bikers can't allow, Anyway, on that day, just like the previous times, he'd been hired to look after the place. But man, strange things happened. There were lights in the sky, like it was lighting up from something that was happening on the ground. They could hear some singing, beating of drums, a lot of screaming. He said some of his men had to smoke a fair bit of dope just to handle it. Now, some of them screams were fucking awful. And what? Oh yeah, weird looking clouds were forming above the place and a voice in the sky. A voice that sounded like thunder. He thinks, but he wasn't too sure. So maybe it was some thunder that sounded like a voice. I mean, it's hard to say. He wasn't sure himself. He kept saying he didn't care. But I reckon he talked about it for way too long for a bloke who didn't care. Anyway, it gave me the chills just fucking talking about it. But that's not all. He said that after that voice rumbled and shook the trees and the ground, something worse happened. Now, I'm still not sure what he meant, but he kept saying all around us the sky was falling down. The sky was falling down on us. The whole sky fell down on us. Now, he wasn't out of action for that long, maybe just a few minutes after whatever happened. But he was surrounded by fire, dead people everywhere. The buildings of the farm, ranch, whatever that fucking place was, were all burning, and the nearby bush had waves of fire coming closer and closer every second. He saw two of his men riding off from the nearby road, and he yelled at them. Well, a few seconds later he had his own gear on and he jumped on the back of the Gixxer, ridden by his mate, the sergeant at arms. That's Mikey. Same bike he arrived here on. Good old 750 S-Rad. His other bro on a Harley Sportsman was following, so they pissed off as fast as they could on the last road that wasn't blocked by the heavy fire. He kept saying to me, the fire was acting strange. I can't make sense of what he was saying. Like, the fire was alive, he said a few times. I'm not sure what the hell that could mean, but he said it was going against the wind, like he was trying to catch him or something. Apparently, it was just a small road. I mean, not the kind you can possibly go like really fast on, but they tried to escape anyway, this hellish kind of place. He said again, the fire was trying to catch him. Now, as a passenger, he could look around, at least more than the other rider, and he still couldn't understand what it was that he saw, but he described it. He said he could see something in the furnace. What was his words now? Something was moving in there, something alive, like a giant snake. Or giant snakes, because it seems there were more than one. They were coming closer, and the fire was like launching itself around, trying to get them. The other dude, the one on the Harley, ended up having a tree fall on him. Nothing he could do to avoid it. You know the weight of these fucking bikes. He couldn't brake in time, and he couldn't accelerate fast enough. Poor bastard. Hopefully he died quick, eh? Now, Bob, shall we say, and the other guy on the old Susie could see the fire ahead, closing in on them. Something was screaming in the fire. Or was it the fire itself? He couldn't tell, but by that stage they're almost out of the fire, and a few trees seemed like they were pushed by giant tongues of fire. He said the trees were hardly burned, but they fell right in front of him on the road. And the guy riding couldn't see any other escape, so he tried to ride through them. And what a fucking mistake. They flew through the branches on fire and rolled on the road. Bike landed on its side and scraped on the road for like 5-10 metres or something. Old Bob rolled on the road too, but his less mate was less lucky and his head hit some huge fucking rock on the side of the road. No need to be a doctor to understand there was no hope to see him stand up again with his neck at this fucking weird angle. Oops. Bob was on his knees, and just looking at the weirdest things he'd ever seen, rolling in the fire like some huge lizards, or snakes, or dragons. I mean, he just didn't know. Not that he could see them clearly. It's like they were made of coal and embers, rolling, swimming through an ocean of extreme heat. So, what to do? Die there? Use one of his bullets to blow his own head off? Nah, no way. That wasn't quite Bob's style, was it? He got his gun out and he's ready to shoot the things, whatever they were. He wasn't going to die without trying whatever he could. And these things, whatever they were, seemed to be blowing or breathing the fire, drinking it somehow. He turned his head. He saw another one coming on the other side of the road. Thought it was a burnt tree at first, but it was moving too much like something that was alive. It was rolling itself into the fire on the other side of the road. It was taking the fire from the tree ahead of him, like swallowing it from that tree that was on the road. I didn't think twice, but he put his gun away, picked up the old Suzuki, started it, jumped on and went full speed through the branches, because there was almost no flames left now, you see. He knew that was his only chance. And it worked. He was out of the shit. Just had a quick look in the mirrors, could see the things jumping and rolling in the huge flames above the fires, above the trees. So then what? I mean, his entire chapter, which was the main one for this huge town, was totally gone. No one was left in Neo-Melbourne for the mob. The next day he might be able to contact the closest chapter, but I mean, for now, he was on his own. So he made his way here. Yeah, mate, here, my place. The only safe place he could think of. A place where he could drink and try to forget and, remember at the same time, you see. A place where he could talk about what the fuck just happened. As stupid as it may seem, he knew that here he could talk about it. As I said, he arrived early in the morning, half burnt, stinky as. Oh, that fucking smell. Made a few phone calls, spent the rest of his day drinking after telling me the whole story. And later on, some guys from his club came with a little truck. They picked him up, him and the half-melted GSXR. Never heard from him again. Apparently, the suicide mob's still in business in a few small towns, but they left the big game. Well, for now, anyway. I mean, that kind of weird shit's happened many times around here. Entire chapters disappearing. Sometimes, a whole club's gone and nobody knows why. Just like that Bunyip story round Mooney Ponds Creek. Oh, that's another story though, eh? And he's getting late. Better start shutting down. Hey, ride safe, mate.